This book for me was a truly life-changing read, and I don't say that lightly. It fundamentally changed the way that I think about existence and human beings and myself. And it's not really a book. It's more of a series of lectures condensed into an audiobook that you can find on Audible. And it's called Becoming Nobody by the amazing spiritual guru, Ram Dass. I'm going to go through a few of these concepts in this book that I really resonated with. That's really helped me in my life. A lot of these concepts are very complex, so I'm going to do my best to paraphrase it. I might butcher it, but this is to the best of my understanding. These concepts are so deep that it takes constant repetition over and over to really integrate and understand them, which I'm still in the process of doing. So first and foremost, what's interesting about Ram Dass is he actually started out as an American socio-psychologist. So he was a clinician seeing clients in his practice. But he got to a point where things were quite material and superficial, where he felt that things fell short for him in terms of the individual self. So what he started to do was venture a little bit further east to extract wisdom from Eastern philosophy, from places such as India, etc. And he basically came up with this concept that he talks about called the somebody suit. So what he means by a somebody suit is we define ourselves generally by what we do in society, our level of status or our occupation or whatever it is that we do in our lives. Maybe we're a doctor or a lawyer or a nurse or an artist. These are all things that we do and not necessarily who we are in our essence as human beings. So what he realized was as he became like a psychologist and he started to elevate in society, that was his somebody suit, being a psychologist. And then he talks about as he progressed in his career, he started to become a more revered psychologist. So then his somebody suit started to become really nice to people. People like, oh, that's a nice suit you got there, psychologist. Oh, that's a really nice suit you got when he elevated in his career. And it got to the point where it just became shallow and unfulfilling for him. So he wanted to seek out and understand what it really was to be a human being. So I thought that was a fascinating concept. Because if you think about it, if you define yourself by what you do in life, let's just say you're a corporate worker, you're a general manager. Well, what happens when you eventually retire from that job? Like, what are you then? What is your somebody suit? Are you retired? Are you a ex-general manager? It's an interesting concept. And I think it's something that people really struggle with when they lose certain things in their life, which they define as who they are, when in reality, it's what they do. The next concept I loved was he talks about pushing and pulling, or pushing and clinging. He's essentially talking about the Buddhist concept of attachment, where the root of all suffering is being attached to something. So he talks about staying in the sweet spot of not clinging to certain things, but also not pushing them away either. So an example you could use is not clinging to positive or happy emotions, because when they inevitably go away, you suffer. So just be with it and appreciate it, but don't cling to it. And as well as negative emotions as well. Don't push them away, like suffering or anxiety or depression or sadness or anger, what have you. Because the pressure of pushing those away when it's inevitably just going to stay with you until it passes is only going to further add to the suffering. Something else he talks about is the idea of letting go and forgiveness. And basically asking yourself, do you want to be right or do you want to be free? And it's something that I've always struggled with, but it's a powerful concept where no matter what bad things other people do to yourself, you will probably be right in your resentment and your anger that you hold on towards them and wanting to call them out or have them suffer certain consequences or what have you. You will likely be right in that endeavor, but you most likely won't be free. Not if you hold on to that anger and that resentment. And he talks about his struggle with anger and resentment in the past, just really holding on to it. And even though he was right in doing that, he was right in condemning them and he was righteous and right in his anger and resentment, he was never really free. He was always suffering. So he proposes that it's always best to forgive and let it go so you can be free rather than being right. So ask yourself, do you want to be free or do you want to be right? Still working on that one myself. And the last concept I really liked, which is an extension of that, is seeing people as merely phenomena. much like you would a tree just simply existing unconsciously, which is unaware of its existence and how it got there or what it does. Much like an animal, like a dog, it doesn't really know what it's doing. It's simply just a product of its genetics and its environment. So inevitably, when someone does something negatively towards you, rather than taking it personally, just see them as phenomena. See all those actions and behaviors as merely phenomena that they don't really have control over. And the last point he touches upon is the idea of simply just being a human soul. That is who you are and what you are. You're not defined by what you do, and therefore you're not better or worse than anyone else. Neither is anyone else better or worse than you. We're all just simply trapped in our own incarnations and somebody suits, and therefore everybody that you meet, see them as another fellow human soul like you, just trapped in a different incarnation. So Becoming Nobody by the amazing Ram Dass. Check it out. It's one of the most life-changing reads that I've ever come across, and it might be the same for you. So give it a read and become nobody. All right.